The sea of espionage is full of danger, listening to thunder in silence. Our choreography may not only be embarrassing, but if they make a mistake, they will lose their lives. Keywords of the novel. Spy Sea Thunder no pop-ups, Spy Sea Thunder TXT complete collection download, Spy Sea Thunder latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Dilemmas. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1. Dilemmas. In 1939, on the second day of the second lunar month in the Jimao year, the dragon raised its head. Shanqing, Chongqing, Luojiawan. The Investigation and Statistics Bureau, Military Statistics Bureau, of the Military Commission of the Nationalist Government, the Judicial Department, the Trial Department, and the No. 1 Trial Room. Sitting in the interrogation room, Song Shutong felt that there was air leakage everywhere because there was not a single piece of glass on the window. This scene of the mountain city is not uncommon. The Japanese army occupied Jiangcheng, Wuhan, and fighter planes took off from Hankou, constantly bombing the mountain city. The large-scale bombing a few days ago caused heavy losses to the mountain city. Many glasses have been shattered or shaken, and those who survived have also been manually dismantled by the owner. After all, the sharp glass shattered and shot out by the explosion has a considerable destructive power. The old newspaper was pasted with paste, and the windows slightly yellowed. The corners of the paper swayed in the wind. "Mr. Song, let's talk about it ourselves." The words that rang out in the interrogation room moved Song Shutong's gaze away from the window and onto the person in front of him. There was a table separated between the two, with clear priorities. The speaker's name is Chao Yaning, the head of the Judicial Department and the Interrogation Department of the Military Statistics Bureau. What are we talking about? Let's talk about why the Sword Support Team suffered heavy losses and casualties during an operation against Japan, but you managed to come back well. The Military Intelligence Support Sword Group was formed by the Special Affairs Office of Lixing Society at that time, which drew elite members from various departments during the early stages of the anti-Japanese war, with the aim of cracking down on Japanese invaders and eliminating traitors. The sword-embracing group performed well and repeatedly made remarkable achievements, leaping to become the ace group in the Bureau, but almost all members were defeated in the last action against Japan. Only Yen Qinghui, Nie Hong, and Song Shutong survived, and all three of them are currently being detained and reviewed by the Judicial Department of the Military Statistics Bureau. Looking at each other, Song Shutong coldly said, "I have already answered many times." Without avoiding eye contact, Chao Yaning crossed his fingers on the table and said, "Please answer again. Do you have to hear the answer you want from me? It's about hearing the truth. What you call the truth is to doubt me. Work needs. Your job is to sprinkle salt on the wounds of soldiers who go through life and death. Perhaps the wound is just a cover-up. What do you believe to be the truth?" Song Shutong, a member of the Sword Support Group, defected to the Japanese and used the lives of his fellow members as a pledge of allegiance in exchange for glory, wealth, and status. Chao Yaning's cold and solemn words did not bring about the abnormality of Song Shutong, as he had anticipated and was not in a hurry. Joining the Japanese. Song Shutong smiled at the corners of his mouth, as if mocking Chao Yaning. Dealing with him every day, indulging in extravagance, and being corroded by sugar-coated bullets, it is difficult to guarantee that he has no second thoughts. Are you obsessed with money? Is this what you think of as work in enemy-occupied areas? Song Shutong's face was even more mocked. It's not without a lesson from the past, Chao Yaning pressed forward step by step. If I really crave pleasure in exchange for wealth and status, why should I come back and fall into the trap? The Japanese sent you back, and everyone knows Sima Zhao's intentions. Can I consider this as luxurious clothing and food, or is it licking blood with the tip of a knife? The sword-embracing team is carrying out tasks, but if they take the opposite path, they may be surprised. Self-contradictory. True and false, both virtual and real. Mr. Song knows better than me, doesn't he? Evidence. Song Shutong asked calmly. I'm afraid it's just baseless evidence. Then don't just talk nonsense. Is it true? Even so, your level is not good either. The atmosphere in the interrogation room was deadlocked for a moment, with a sharp confrontation and tense swords. The interrogation clerk in charge of making interrogation records had stiff fingers holding the pen, and the conversation was too fast. He could only write with great speed. Chow Yaning was not surprised. In the past few days, the interrogation of Song Shutong ended in an unhappy ending. When members of the same group sacrifice and pour dirty water on themselves, no one will be calm. If one is not anxious or impatient and can handle things with ease, then there are actually many doubts. However, even if Song Shutong behaves like this, Chow Yaning may not believe what he said. He is observing Song Shutong, but Song Shutong is also observing him. Is there any connection between Chow Yaning and the previous incident with the sword support group? It's difficult to deal with. Whether it was Yen Qinghui or Nie Hong, as well as the song book hall in front of him, Chow Yaning took turns reviewing it but made no progress. The sword-embracing group has no mediocre talents. However, the way the three survived was different. Yen Qinghui was in charge of the radio station and was not present during the operation that day, so he was able to survive. Nie Hong was responsible for driving and responding, waiting at the evacuation site to survive. As for Song Shutong, directly participating in the operation and charging into battle with other members of the sword-embracing group, it can be said that surviving was a close escape. Those who took direct action all died, living alone in the Song Academy. In Chow Yaning's view, among the three, the suspicion was the greatest. Mr. Song is very angry. Chow Yaning hoped to seek a breakthrough. The interrogation department is full of blood and criticism, calling a deer a horse. Is it possible that I still have to greet them with a smile? It's just an investigation. Ha, investigation. What does Mr. Song mean? Is it an investigation, or are you, Chief Chow, trying to step on your own people to rise to power? Upon hearing Song Shutong's words, Chow Yaning's angry eyes widened slightly and she patted the table with both hands, asking, Song Shutong, why did you say such a thing? Chief Chow is frustrated and has not been promoted in the workplace for a long time. He wants to use the name of I Support Sword Group to gain attention and seize the opportunity to rise to the top, which is really a good means. The mockery in Song Shutong's words was strong, and he was not afraid that Chow Yaning would not understand. What he had to do at this moment was to provoke this person. Chow Yaning, chief of the trial department of the judicial department, was born in 1904 and is currently 35 years old. In 1926, he graduated from the 6th cohort of the Central Military Academy in Jinling, Nanjing, and performed excellently in the face of warlords. Later, due to his upright personality and hatred of evil, as well as his inability to rub sand in his eyes, he was transferred to the position of chief of the interrogation department. Many of his classmates graduated in the same year and held the position of director. Chow Yaning offended many people in his position, so he was not promoted for a long time. In Song Shutong's mind, information about Chow Yaning flashed through one by one, and all he had to do at this moment was to provoke this person. Honest and hot-tempered. This is the response method of Song Shutong, disappointed in the workplace, long time no promotion. Take advantage of the situation and step on your own people to rise to the top. In a moment, the smell of gunpowder permeated the interrogation room. We are working hard on the front line with the Japanese, disregarding life and death. Chief Chow is thinking about promotion and using our lives as leverage to interrogate the members of the sword support team. Let Chief Chow shine in the bureau, Song Shutong continued to fuel the fire. How could Chow Yaning behave like such a petty person? When the watch wants to set up a memorial archway, it's better to use torture directly to make a move, so that he can advance to higher positions and become successful. Song Shutong disdains. Being pointed at and scolded in front of someone, Chow Yaning's anger surged in his heart. He had been in the interrogation department for many years, fulfilling his duties and working hard. Even if there were many people who offended him, he never regretted it. Today, he was said to want to turn black and white into a horse, and to use his own blood to pave his career path, which is extremely ironic. Song Shutong deliberately wanted to provoke Chow Yaning, but at this moment, seeing that the heat was almost there, he planned to put in more effort. With constant stimulation from his words, Chow Yaning turned off the recording equipment and got up and walked out from behind the table. Seeing this, Song Shutong felt secretly happy in his heart, but he kept talking, wanting to force the other party to take action. The interrogation officer quickly came to Chow Yaning's side and whispered, "Chief Chow, many eyes have been staring at us. If we take action, it will fall into the spotlight. When will the interrogation department start to pay attention to the methods of interrogation?" Chow Yaning couldn't stand Song Shutong's expression at this moment. "It's a review," the clerk reminded. "Interrogation and review, a word difference, a world difference." As Chow Yaning was about to take action, he was persuaded by those around him. A glimmer of disappointment flashed in Song Shutong's eyes, as if his previously planned way out of trouble was obstructed. Chow Yaning, who was impulsive, calmed down and sat back at the table before speaking. "It's not bad that he's a member of the Ace Action Team and the Sword Support Team. His skills are really impressive." As Chow Yaning saw through his calculations, Song Shutong didn't hide it and smiled freely, saying, "I underestimated Chief Chow. Wanted to provoke me, clashed with me, and forced the military and operations departments to intervene in the interrogation. The plan was well planned. It's just a case of class door playing tricks." Since participating in the anti-Japanese action, the Sword Support Group has always excelled in completing every task, and has made countless contributions in eliminating traitors and killing enemies. Such a top-notch group has almost been completely destroyed now. How can there be no loophole? Something fishy. A hint of anger flashed in Song Shutong's heart. The Ace team was completely defeated. The person who is currently alive has become the most suspicious person. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Opportunities for Self-Certification of Innocence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Opportunities for Self-Certification of Innocence. In just a few days, after several rounds of review, there was no rest after taking turns. Song Shutong's face was tired, and his beard was disheveled and slightly disheveled. Today's review is almost the same, destined to have no progress and ended in an unhappy breakup. Song Shutong was well aware of the ways involved, but he resolutely chose to come back and face the seemingly endless scrutiny. "I had originally planned to use Chow Yaning's personality to provoke him today, so that the military department and the operations department could intervene and help him out of trouble, but I did not expect Chow Yaning to stop at the cliff. When will this review end? There is something suspicious about the matter with the sword embracing group, and Mr. Song may need to stay in the interrogation department for a few more days. We hope for your understanding." Chow Yaning was patient and prepared well when dealing with the well-known members of the sword embracing group. After speaking, Chow Yaning left the interrogation room and Song Shutong was taken down to be detained and guarded. This matter is not yet concluded. Without returning to his own office, Chow Yaning went directly to the office of the director of the Judicial Department, Wan Chunping. "Report, come in." "Director. How about the review?" Wan Chunping put down the document in his hand and asked. "No water leaks. There are only a few people who can receive such an evaluation from Chow Timian. There is no mediocre talent in the sword embracing group, and besides, he made an exception and joined the team midway. It's not easy to deal with. Today, I saw it firsthand. Let's hear it." Chow Yaning briefly explained today's situation, and Wan Chunping listened and said, "It seems that he had anticipated today's calamity. It's not difficult to expect, routine review is essential, and what's commendable is that he has a deep understanding of me," Chow Yaning said. Wan Chunping pondered for a moment and said, "Don't make any unnecessary mistakes. Just be responsible for reviewing, and don't interfere with anything else." The difficulty of reviewing the three suspects is significant. Even if the difficulty is high, it needs to be checked. But at this time, there is no time limit. No limit. Chow Yanning hesitated to speak. "If you have any questions, just say them directly. Song Shutong is fine here, but Yan Qinghui and Nye Hong, as well as the telecommunications and general affairs departments, have called multiple times to inquire about the situation, urging for review and hoping to attract people. Hunan and Guangdong styles are quite active," Wan Chunping pointed out. "There are many factions in the Military Statistics Bureau, including the Hunan, Guangdong, and Zhejiang factions, which can be considered as a tripartite confrontation. However, the Zhejiang clique has a strong influence, and among them, the Zhejiang clique's small fellow townspeople, the Jiangshan faction, are at their peak. The leader of the sword-embracing group, Tian Gu, is a member of the Zhejiang-based Jiangshan sect. Unfortunately, he sacrificed himself this time, otherwise the Jiangshan sect would not have been so quiet. Yan Qinghui comes from the telecommunications department and is from Huaihua, Hunan. If he had outstanding abilities, he would not have been transferred to the embracing sword group. Therefore, this time, the Hunan branch naturally came forward to help. Nye Hong comes from the automobile brigade of the General Affairs Office and is from Zhongshan, Guangdong. He has a superb driving skill and is able to easily capture various modes of transportation, so the Guangdong style naturally won't sit idly by. On the contrary, people like Song Shutong, who were 13 times unreliable, suddenly became a neglected existence. Director, will the sword-embracing group be affected by the recent robbery and the factions? Be cautious. Chow Yanning was interrupted by Wan Chunping halfway through the conversation. As the old saying goes, don't make unnecessary mistakes, just be responsible for reviewing. Yes. At this point, the phone on Wan Chunping's desk rang and he reached out to pick it up. Wan Chunping's expression changed slightly. Putting down the phone, he said to Chow Yanning, "Come with me to the secretary's office and see Director Mao." "What's going on?" "Just said he didn't pay attention, but this person came." Song Shutong. "Let's release people." "Of course, it's not about letting people go, we'll know when we go." Song Shutong watched as the sunlight gradually set and the moonlight climbed outside the window. Suddenly, he heard footsteps coming from outside, and soon the interrogation officer opened his door and let him out again. Upon arriving at the interrogation room, Fang saw that Chow Yanning had already taken his seat, but there was an additional person beside him. Song Shutong immediately recognized him as Shen Lushui, the head of the military intelligence department. Before returning to the mountain city, Song Shutong had already familiarized and mastered the information about the headquarters of the Military Statistics Bureau in advance. Sitting on the stool, he looked at Chow Yanning. Chow Yanning glanced at Shen Lushui beside him and said, "Chief Shen, why don't you speak up?" "Director Chow and I just came from the secretary's office," Shen Lushui said in a strong voice, complemented by his calm face, appearing elegant and graceful. "Do I have to use the intelligence department to review?" Song Shutong chuckled lightly. "Don't misunderstand, I'm not here to assist in reviewing you, but to give you a chance to prove your innocence." Self-proclaimed innocence. Not bad. It seems that I don't have the qualifications to say anything about self-cleansing now. Opportunities are rare, Shen Lushui said seriously. Song Shutong understood in his heart that the military department and the operations department must have been involved, otherwise he wouldn't have had any chance to prove his innocence. Although the sword-embracing group was composed of elite members drawn from various locations, after forming the group, they followed orders from two places. Now that such a situation has occurred in the sword-embracing group, the directors of the two places naturally do not want to see it. It is the actions of the internal members of the group. As for why this opportunity was given to him, Song Shutong had some speculations in his heart. Although Shenlushui is no different from him and does not come from 3 different regions, the director of the military department is from Zhejiang, and Shenlushui will follow him. As a result, Yan Qinghui and Nie Hong will not be chosen immediately. How to prove one's innocence? Song Shutong asked. It's simple, capturing Japanese spies. But for some reason, Chao Yaning, who was sitting next to him, stiffened slightly when he heard the word simple. Suspicion of defecting to the Japanese will naturally lead to the arrest of Japanese spies. What do I need to do? Song Shutong didn't think it was simple from Chao Yaning's expression. When Shenlushui finished speaking, Song Shutong's face was exactly the same as Chao Yaning's. Chief Shen, are you sure this is an opportunity? Song Shutong felt as if he had listened to a fantasy. Nature is an opportunity. You're not asking me to prove my innocence, you're pushing me to the brink of destruction. This task may be difficult for others, but for your sword support team Song Shutong, you can give it a try. You actually look up to me. The leader of the sword embracing group, Tiangu, made an exception and admitted you halfway through. You are interested in your learning ability. All members of the sword embracing group are your teachers, each with their own skills. In this year, with your talent, you will inevitably learn 70.8% of the skills. You should have the opportunity to handle this task. It is reasonable for Shenlushui to know about the matter of the sword support group and report it to the military department and operations department. Aren't you afraid that I'll never come back and report to the Japanese spy? To be honest, this task is of great significance, but there is no suitable candidate. Although you are still in the review stage, you can handle it on your own. Moreover, the director does not believe that you have defected to the Japanese and is under great pressure to seek an opportunity for you to prove your innocence. You must seize this opportunity well. Chao Yaning sat silently on the side, but couldn't help but speculate in his heart whether this military department was planning to salvage Song Shutong, or whether he didn't die fast enough and added fire to the back. After all, the difficulty of this task is far beyond imagination. He believes that Song Shutong may refuse to carry out the task and continue to cooperate with the interrogation department's review. After all, although the review is slow, it is better than stability. However, Song Shutong spoke up and said, "Thank you for the opportunity sent by the director. If I don't continue, I will be a bit disrespectful." At this moment, Song Shutong understood that helping himself out of trouble was just a side effect, and that the intelligence department indeed needed a suitable person to help them complete this task. As for what kind of trouble it will bring to Song Shutong if the task cannot be completed, it is not within their consideration. However, in today's Song Academy, we must make every effort to seize any opportunity, even if it is so difficult. It seems that I don't need to waste any more time talking, Shenlushui said with a smile. Thank you for me, Director. Don't worry, complete the task. You can thank the director in person. It's also good. Chao Yaning looked at Song Shutong. Are you really confident in completing the task? At this moment, the situation will only worsen if the task cannot be completed. Shenlushui stood up and said, I've finished speaking. I'll go back and report first. As for the relevant information, someone will bring it later. I'll pick you up in 2 days, and I'll trouble Chief Chao for the next 2 days. It's my job. Chao Yaning stood up and bid farewell. After delivering Shenlushui, Chao Yaning stood in front of Song Shutong and said, If you have the heart to refuse, I can help you. Chao Tiemian is indeed impartial, but how could I give up on this great opportunity? Great opportunity. Chao Yaning turned around and left, explaining to the interrogation officer, we have provided him with good food and drink, as well as sufficient rest for the next 2 days. Don't disturb him. To give you the best form, he wants to see if this is a great opportunity or if he is shameless. Song Shutong knew that Chao Yaning had such a personality and did not thank him. He left the interrogation room and went back to rest well, recuperating his energy. Shen Lushui is right. Opportunities are rare, and when you encounter them, you must seize them. Although the difficulty is great, Shen Lushui has a sentence that he said correctly. The members of the sword-embracing group are all his teachers, and after studying for so long, they must always be on their own. Now without their protection, it's also time to test the results. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Listening to the wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Listening to the wind on the 5th day of February. Shansheng, Kaoshanmen Wharf, Sanyuan Temple. Song Shutong has changed its decadent appearance from a few days ago, with clean and neat hair. He is dressed in coarse linen clothes and holds a newspaper from 3 days ago in his right hand, folded into a triangular shape, with one corner facing inward and the other facing outward, standing in front of the gate of the Sanyuan Temple. As he looked around, a sedan approached him, glanced at the newspaper in his hand as if confirming something, and then opened the car door to call him in. Song Shutong bent down to get into the car, but before he could sit still, he heard the person in the back seat shouting, "Close your eyes." As soon as he closed his eyes, a black cloth lay in front of him, covering Song Shutong's eyes before the car started moving. BB. Stir-fried rice, sugar, and hot water, grinding scissors, cutting knives, selling newspapers, the latest article in the Xinhua Daily, condemning Wang Ni's opposition to surrender. Let's have a bowl of handmade noodles. 72 rows of procession, one street offering sacrifices and another street, the Yuan dynasty people slaughtered us as prime ministers. Various voices came one after another in no particular order, and in an instant, they all flooded into the ears of the Song Academy. Shout out. Selling news. The sound of Sichuan opera. Mutual doping makes it difficult to distinguish between each other. Song Shutong's teeth pressed against his tongue, forcing his own spiritual platform to be clear, and he fought his life to remember these sounds. Gradually, there was a bloody smell in my mouth, but I couldn't help but feel it. Black cloth blindfolded his eyes. Without sight, all he could rely on now was his hearing and smell. Countless sounds are amplified in the ear. The laughter and playfulness of children, the shouting and shouting of the store, the chatter of pedestrians. There is also a faint, if non-existent odor in the nasal cavity. Aroma. Stinky odor. Paint odor. Residual smell of scorched earth. With a steady breath, Song Shutong knew that 2,142 breaths had passed. But there is no sign of the car stopping. Is the old city area of Shansheng so big? He thinks that the driver is circling around because some sounds actually sound familiar. Some flavors also seem familiar. Here we are, get off the car. 4,014 cents. When he heard about getting off the car, the number in Song Shutong's heart froze at 4014. This number made him furrow his brow. One breath, 4,014 breaths, for over half an hour. It doesn't sound too long, but for the current Song Shutong, it's astronomical numbers. And during this process, the speed of the car constantly changes, and the difficulty levels up again. He only felt the pain when his tongue touched his teeth. He was led forward, climbed 5 steps into the room, and walked for a moment before the black cloth in front of him was taken off. The exhibition in the reception hall is simple, with solid wood flooring that is not rotten, and crystal chandeliers that are dazzling and gorgeous. Wait here, he said, leaving only Song Shutong in the room. He looked out of the window, hoping to gather more clues, but what he saw was only a courtyard, not any buildings facing the street. Footsteps could be heard outside the door, and a person from far to near started talking to the person in charge of guarding the door and also bringing him over. Did you switch people? The tone of the newcomer was a hint of doubt, and it sounded like a middle-aged man in his 40s. A new young man has arrived, not the same person as last time, said another person with respect. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment and asked, "Are you sure you didn't bring the wrong person?" He was at the agreed location, holding a newspaper confirming his identity. The location was right, the newspaper was right. But the person changed. The middle-aged man whispered, "Guns ready, come with me." The next moment, the door of the room was pushed open, and Song Shatong looked at the middle-aged man who came in. In his 40s, he has a big belly, but he is somewhat honest. He really has a deceptive appearance. The middle-aged man was also looking at Song Shatong, who was not very old and only looked around 20 years old. It looked slim and straight, with a tough face and a competent physique, making the whole person more energetic. "Boss Lee?" Song Shatong asked first. "It's me, where's Lao Luo?" Mr. Lee asked casually. "Are you talking about Lao Lu?" The person who came before was not surnamed Luo, but surnamed Lu. "Perhaps I made a mistake. Why didn't Lao Lu come? Why did you come instead? I am young and have a fresh face." Lao Lu has come twice, afraid of being noticed by someone with intentions. "Master, it seems that you are very optimistic about me. It was the leader who asked me to come." Mr. Lee's gaze made Song Shatong feel like a light on his back. He understood that if he made a slight mistake, he would be in a different position. "You guys in the robe, the leading master, and the third master of the family are confusing." Faced with this defense, Song Shatong just smiled and didn't answer. "Looking at the tea," said Mr. Lee, and someone came to serve tea. Song Shatong looked up and saw 2 teacups, one inside and one outside the plate. "Please," Mr. Lee gestured. Song Shatong moved the tea from outside the plate into the plate, and then held a cup to invite him. He said in his mouth, "Muyang City is the heavens and earth, and friendship relies entirely on a little Hong. Today, my sworn brother is here to interrogate me, so don't treat Hong Ying as an outsider." The wooden yang formation in the tea-bowl formation was successfully passed by the Song Book Hall. After listening to the poem recitation, Mr. Lee picked up the teacups together and lowered his head to take a sip. "What vine?" "The newspaper's welcome." Mr. Lee put down his teacup and suddenly asked. "The tiger's head tops the vine." Song Shatong said his surname was Wang. Old Lu once said he also took the god of wealth. I received a guanyin and said, "Vote. Dare to save face with you." Yi Ziguan went up to the clouds and called for tickets at home. What kind of man is asking for his surname, taking on the god of wealth? It is a kidnapping and redemption. Receiving guanyin, the person bound was a woman who said the ticket was a bargaining chip. She went to negotiate for face, and Yi Ziguan went up to the clouds. The leader dressed up and went to the house to negotiate the price. The kidnapping incident was told by Lao Lu to Boss Lee. Boss Lee is now using it to test Song Shatong, and adding slang has caught him off guard. There is also a difference between the god of wealth and guanyin in terms of details, which cannot be mistaken at all. At this point in the conversation, Mr. Lee waved to the person behind him to leave. He took a pen and paper and said, "Write it down." Without hesitation, Song Shatong lay on the table and started writing, one address after another appearing on the paper. After writing more than 10, he finally stopped. Mr. Lee picked up the paper and glanced at it. The handwriting was carelessly neat and slightly sloppy, and he immediately felt normal in his heart. He immediately put it away and said, "Brother Wang has been working hard all the way. Let's take a break and have a cup of tea." After speaking, he left the room without waiting for his answer. "Keep an eye on him," Mr. Lee said to the person outside the door. "Yes," said the person outside the door. Song Shatong understood in his heart that Mr. Lee had not yet fully believed in himself, and he could only wait. The back is already damp, and the inner shirt is sticking to the body. But he didn't sit in the room and kept muttering, 4014 breath. Memories in my mind churn endlessly. The various sounds I heard on the way here kept coming to my mind one after another, as if they were movie scenes. 125% interest, speed up. 365 breaths, turn left. 440.4 breaths, downhill. 754% interest, selling newspapers. 1560.5 breaths, Sichuan Opera's high-pitched tune enters the ear. 2005 cents, the pungent smell of paint fills the air. 2345 breaths, the rich aroma of new tea. 2854 breaths, with a lingering smell of burnt earth. 3540.1 breaths, the car continuously bumps and the road surface is uneven. The scenes of memories, one scene at a time, gradually clear and gradually blurred. With his eyes closed, Song Shutong couldn't help but furrow his brows and clench his hands, forcing himself to deepen his memory. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Catching the Wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Catching the Wind. Boss Lee returned to his room, carefully read the content written by Song Shutong, compared it with other intelligence information, and then hid it before coming out of the room. If there is no problem with the person, take him away. At this moment, Mr. Lee was convinced that there was no problem with the person, and his cautious attitude was chilling. The door was once again pushed open, and at this moment, Song Shutong's face was as usual, as if he was not the one who had been desperately recalling and deepening his memory just now. Brother Wang, you're being neglected. This fiat is hard money. Boss Lee placed the fiat on the table with a friendly expression on his face. This fiat currency is the legal tender, and upon inspection by Song Shutong, it is not a small amount. Hurriedly grabbing it into his arms, accompanied by a smiling face, he said, "It's not hard, it's not hard. It's my honor to be able to serve Mr. Lee." When I saw money, my face changed. In the depths of Mr. Lee's eyes, there was a hint of disdain, but it was imperceptible. A friendly smile still hung on his face and he said, "Go back and let your grandfather work hard. Money is not a problem. Boss Lee, don't worry, I will definitely convey it." He looked serious, as if he could still get the money the next time he came to deliver a message. "Send the Wang brothers away," Mr. Lee said to the person behind him. "I offended you." Someone approached and took out a black cloth. He naturally understood and stood honestly, blindfolded tightly, unable to even let in a glimmer of light. Being led out in the dark and getting in the car. The car started, but at this moment, Song Shutong didn't remember anything. The way back may be different from the way you came. If one continues to remember, it will not deepen their existing memory, but only increase the content of their memory. 4014 cents. At this time, the difficulty is already high enough for him. If we continue to remember, it will only have the opposite effect. Get off the car. When he was pushed off the car and reached out to untie the black cloth in front of him, he found that the car had already driven far away and returned to the Kaohsiunmun dock. He was taken into the car from Kaohsiunmun before. Sitting on the roadside, memories in my mind have already begun to blur. Pinch your head between your knees, block your ears, race against time, and strive to tidy up. Every detail, every point in time he tried hard to recall it, but 4014 is an astronomical number. Never before, he would think that this time was long and that it was out of reach. The further you recall, the more blurry the memory becomes, the longer the span becomes, and the difficulty increases. A figure walked over and stood beside him, silently waiting without disturbing him. After organizing his memories, Song Shutong looked up at the people around him. "Chief Shen," he said. Shen Lushui came straight to the point and said, "How about it? Can we find it back?" "Find it back? It is natural to find the location of Boss Lee. Song Shutong was blindfolded and brought back, but now he wants to find it back. If others hear it, they will only consider it as a fantasy and a dream. But this is Shen Lushui, giving Song Shutong the so-called opportunity to prove his innocence, which is also why Chao Yaning finds it difficult to complete. The difficulty is much greater than what Chief Shen said before. Song Shutong's words carried a hint of helplessness. Shen Lushui's heart sank slightly. He had previously learned that blindfolded him for at most 2/4 of an hour, but today it has been more than half an hour. Can this kid still remember it completely? Perhaps you are a stranger today, the person who took you back. Be careful and deliberately take a detour, Shen Lushui analyzed. Boss Li is very cautious and keeps probing. Fortunately, we have prepared enough for our lessons, otherwise we can't cope with it. Song Shutong is still a little scared when he recalls the successive probing of Boss Li. How confident is it to find it back? Shen Lushui is most concerned about this issue. I have to say I'm not very sure about it. If you want to prove your innocence, just complete this task. The opportunity is yours, whether you can seize it or not depends on yourself. Shen Lushui pointed out Song Shutong's current situation. You touch your conscience and say, the one you've given is also called an opportunity. The difficulty is so great that it's shocking. It's said that the sword-embracing group has no waste, don't let me down. I would like to thank Director Shen for looking up to our sword support team. It all depends on your performance. There's no way out, Song Shutong said with a smile on his face. Your situation has no way out. Give me a car, Song Shutong took a deep breath and said, realizing the importance of this matter to himself. It's ready, come with me, Shen Lushui said without hesitation, leading him over. The driver is also preparing to be in position, and it is Chao Yanning. The review is not yet completed, and the personnel from the judicial department must be present. Actually, it's more about Chao Yanning himself wanting to explore and see if Song Shutong can complete this task. Song Shutong got on the car, and Shen Lushui sat beside him. Starting from where I was taken into the car, the black cloth that had just been untied was once again tied up. Shen Lushui nodded to Chao Yanning in front, gesturing to follow his instructions. The speed is not right. Before 120.5, the speed was very slow. Go back and start over. There was no one talking in the car, only Song Shutong's voice was intermittent, and he had to maintain his steady breathing and count his breath. Speed up. Too fast, slowly accelerate. 365 breaths, turn left. 564 breath. Stop. When turning back to the left, do it again at a slightly faster speed, Song Shutong frowned. The car was moving again, and he remained silent, wholeheartedly feeling everything he could feel now, comparing it with the memories in his mind. The faint sound of selling newspapers gradually became clear in my ears, and a pedestrian outside the car shouted, "Take a newspaper." Wang Nianyan surrendered and rebelled. That's right, 754 interest, buy news. Continue. Song Shutong dared not slack off at all now, with a breath of 4014 and only 754. Shen Lushui was also very nervous, staring at Song Shutong without blinking, his heart rising to his throat. This task was equally important to him. The car keeps going, back and forth, back and forth. Seemingly slow, but constantly moving forward, the distance to the destination seems to be getting closer and closer. However, nowadays, the atmosphere in the car is not only not relaxed, but also exceptionally oppressive. Because the car has been passing through a painted street several times, going back and forth, it will always come back. What's going on? Shen Lushui waited until now to speak up and ask, just afraid of affecting the Song Academy. At 1565, I smelled the smell of paint. 2290.6 breaths, and I smelled the smell of paint again. 2801 cents, it's still the smell of paint. Upon hearing Song Shutong's words, Shen Lushui said, we have been painting a street 7 or 8 times now. Painting a street is a small street with stone steps from bottom to top. Cars cannot enter but can pass through from outside. Guoguang Paint Shop, Concord Paint Shop, and others are all here. Song Shutong smelled the smell of paint 3 times, which was a trick of the enemy to take a detour, but now it has gone through 7 or 8 times, which is obviously wrong. My mind was in a mess, a mess. My previous memories were very clear, but when I reached 2,000 or 3,000 breaths, my memories began to mix up. Combined with the enemy's constant detours, memory has deviated. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Capturing Shadows. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Capturing Shadows. The enemy took a detour and took me inside, Song Shutong said helplessly as he untied the black cloth that covered his eyes. His heart was also constantly taking a detour, as if it had become a knot. In front of him was a street of paint, with various paint smells pouring into his nostrils. In the distance, there was also a large Danfeng silver tower, but now he had no time to appreciate it, only feeling a buzzing sound in his mind. Find a quieter place. Shen Lushui could tell that the current state of Song Shutong was difficult to continue. Chao Yanning drove the car to a quiet area and stopped the engine. You must find it back, do you understand? Shen Lushui continued without saying a word to Song Shutong. The Ace Action Team Sword Support Team no longer exists in an operation. Who knew you were lucky enough to survive, but what if you survived? All your former comrades sacrificed their lives, and you still have to face scrutiny to survive. The opportunity has been given to you, the opportunity to correct the name of the Sword Embracing Group, the opportunity to correct your own name. Whether the Sword Embracing Group can still achieve yesterday's glory depends on you, and whether you can leave the judicial bench also depends on yourself. Shen Lushui made the interests clear. Song Shutong knew that Shen Lushui's words were not false, and the task was important. The military and operational departments, as well as the ability to rank among the masses, made him participate, which shows that he had put in some effort. Opportunity. Song Shutong naturally wants this opportunity. Leader of the Heavenly Drum team, Qin Go from Fanwei, and Anti from Forgetting Home, they still need to seek justice on their own. But the difficulty is much greater than what you told me before. Song Shutong also felt dissatisfied. I know the difficulty is now much higher than expected, but the matter has come to an end and action is imminent, which cannot be delayed. Let me stay alone for a while, said Song Shutong. Without further ado, Shen Lushui and Chao Yanning opened the car door and got off the car. Isn't this method feasible? Asked Chao Yanning outside the car. Tracking vehicles can easily startle the enemy, and conducting extensive searches is like notifying the other party in advance. Based on the clues currently available, this is the only solution. It's really putting him in a difficult position. Isn't it your judicial department that's making things difficult for him? It's just a routine review, it's just that you're in a hurry. Shen Lushui didn't say anything more. After all, he was also nervous in his heart. Song Shutong was one aspect, and the task itself was also of great importance. In the car, Song Shutong closed his eyes and recalled that he knew he was in chaos. The enemy's detour had greatly disrupted him. How to solve this problem and how to jump out of the paint? Sweat slowly seeped out from his forehead, and Shen Lushui's words kept echoing in his ears. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind as Song Shutong inside the car shouted to the people outside, "Drive, go paint a street intersection." Did you come up with a solution? Shen Lu asked subconsciously underwater. Unnecessary details, just throw them away. The enemy took a detour and smelled the smell of paint 3 times. Why do we have to remember it 3 times? Just remember the last time. The previous 2 times can be completely set aside, so you will have much less to remember and recall. The memory gradually becomes clear. The car arrived at the intersection of a painted street, and Song Shutong's voice rang out once again. Shen Lushui was very nervous, afraid of the next second, and returned to the intersection of the painted street. Skipping the first 2 times, after smelling the smell of paint for the last time. Turn left. Continue turning left. Accelerate, turn right after 60 breaths. 2,854 breaths, with a lingering smell of burnt earth. Finally, I've come over. The familiar scent in my nose made Song Shutong's voice unable to conceal excitement. With a breath of 3,122, the restaurant's food has a strong aroma. 3,300 breath, continue turning left. With 3,540.1 breaths, the car continued to jolt, making him understand that he was getting closer and closer to Mr. Lee. Turn right. Come back, slow down a bit. Turn right. Stop. Just as the word parking was about to exit, Song Shutong wiped his face. The weather in February has made him sweat profusely. Have you arrived? Shen Lushui asked as he looked out of the car. It's not far, let's walk over and don't drive, said Song Shutong. You drive the car a little further away, Shen Lushui said to Chao Yanning, worried that driving would startle the grass and the snake. Chao Yanning still feels a bit unbelievable until now. Did he really find it? I'll come over as soon as I put down the car. Chao Yanning's curiosity could no longer be hidden. After getting off the car, Song Shutong pulled the black cloth from his eyes and slowly walked over with Shen Lushui, calculating the speed of driving and walking. Hiding in a corner and looking at the nearby courtyard, Song Shutong confidently said, "It's right inside." Are you sure? Shen Lushui hoped he could find it, but at this moment, he couldn't believe it. Sure. Either it can't be found, or it won't be wrong to find it. Chao Yanning parked the car and ran over, unable to believe it in his words. You can't just say you can't find a place, can you? Just take a look inside and you'll know. Song Shutong is now relaxed. How many people are inside? Shen Lushui asked. At least 3. There were 2 people taking him over, and Mr. Lee counted them as 1. Go to the headquarters of the bureau to call for someone and immediately arrest them. Shen Lushui made a decisive decision. The deployment and tracking of long lines to catch large fish are not suitable for this operation. The intelligence personnel were quickly called over, and most of them knew about this mission. After all, before, the intelligence department hoped that they could find Mr. Lee, but only then did they use this seemingly impossible method to activate the Song Book Hall. So now the people from the intelligence department come over and stare at Song Shutong non-stop. Because no one expected that they really found it. There is no time to question, no time to be curious. During the operation, follow the command. Go in and catch people, try not to shoot. Shen Lushui ordered them to live at this moment. You two are waiting outside, Shen Lushui said to Chao Yanning and Song Shutong. Capturing Japanese spies is extremely dangerous, especially when trying to catch a living person. Losing one's life is not uncommon. In the end, Japanese spies struggle desperately and often have a determination to die. In most cases, they choose to die together, and if there is a slight mistake, they can only be buried together. Or even when the situation is hopeless and unable to turn the tide, they may choose to drink bullets or take poison to avoid falling into the enemy's hands, making it equally difficult to capture Japanese spies. Chao Yanning and Song Shutong are not members of the intelligence department, so there can be no tacit cooperation. Therefore, Shen Lushui asked the 2 to wait outside, not only to ensure their actions but also to protect them. The 2 of them silently retreated to the distance to observe. Chao Yanning couldn't help but be curious about Song Shutong beside him and said, "You have good skills." There are countless talented individuals in the Military Statistics Bureau, and I am not considered outstanding in various skills, but I have learned a bit more. Chao Yanning thought to himself that the sword-embracing group is all teachers, and it really counts as miscellaneous for school. During the conversation between the 2, everyone in the intelligence department worked together in pairs, climbing in from the wall and landing silently. Go to 2 people and take care of the gatekeeper. This type of courtyard usually has people in the gatekeeper. Quickly, the 2 members returned and said, "One person, done it, with a gun on his body." Upon hearing the gun on their bodies, everyone's nerves tightened again and they clenched their hands tightly. Go block the door. The remaining people follow me, Shen Lushui continued to command. Soon, the situation of the courtyard was figured out. Surprisingly, there are 5 people, and now 3 have been resolved. Because the enemy never imagined that their own location would be controlled by others. Shen Lushui and his team were surprised, and the natural effect was remarkable. There are 2 people in the front room, said the member who was inquiring about the news. Let's go. Shen Lushui was a bit impatient. They were crowded, so they pressed down directly, pushed open the door, and pointed their guns at the people inside. No matter how fast the enemy reacted, it was of no use. Boss Lee and a person below were discussing matters when suddenly a stranger pushed open the door and pointed a gun at their head. They were all stunned for a moment. Mr. Lee reacted quickly and immediately reached out to pull the pre-hidden grenade under the table. He didn't hesitate to die and didn't have any luck in his heart. Fortunately, the intelligence team had been dealing with Japanese spies for a long time, and as expected, the 2 of them had already rushed forward and controlled Boss Lee. Another person cut the tab hidden under the table to ensure it wouldn't explode. There's a gun. Prepare a hand grenade in advance that will perish together. This identity is self-evident. There was no need to doubt Song Shutang's answer, and Shen Lushui couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although the solution was proposed by him, he was not satisfied with Song Shutang's confidence, but rather with the mentality of trying it out. Who had ever thought the effect would be remarkable? Take everyone back and search every room inside and outside the house without leaving anything behind. Shen Lushui ordered. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Escape from difficulties. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Escape from difficulties. When Mr. Lee was led by Song Shutang, his face flashed with malice and confusion, but now no one will answer his questions. Shen Lushui walked out from inside, and Chao Yanning stepped forward and said, "Congratulations to Chief Shen for capturing the Japanese spy. Congratulations to Chief Chao, the review has made significant progress. Tongshi. There will be a follow-up search here for a while, so please ask Chief Chao to take the person back first." "Let's go," Chao Yanning said to Song Shutang. "When can I leave the interrogation department?" Song Shutang asked. "Don't be impatient, don't rush for a moment." "Okay." Song Shutang understood in his heart that Shen Lushui would be very busy as soon as he caught the Japanese spy. The interrogation department will also participate in the interrogation work, and it is equally difficult to get away with it. Follow Chao Yanning to get on the car, and the 2 of them return to the Luojiawan Military Statistics Bureau. Before getting off the car, Chao Yanning said, "You go back and rest first. You're busy." Song Shutang didn't bother and understood in his heart that they couldn't care about him now, so he went back to rest honestly. Watching Song Shutang leave, Chao Yanning went to Wan Chuanping's office. "Director, I'm back. Things went smoothly. Has the director heard about it?" "The arrested person was brought back to the interrogation department for detention, and I naturally heard of it. To be honest, Director, this Song Book Hall has really opened my eyes today." Chao Yanning did not hesitate to praise Song Book Hall. Wan Chunping smiled and asked, "What, are you interested?" After being seen through by Wan Chunping, Chao Yanning bluntly said, "Anyway, the sword support team is gone. Uncle Song Shutang doesn't hurt or love Grandma. Can we get him to our interrogation department?" "It's too late." "Late." Yu Jian from the Action Department's Action Department just came to inquire about the situation at Song Shutang. Didn't the Action Department remain silent before? At this moment, at another moment. The smell of fishy smell has come. Chao Yanning was somewhat unwilling. Wan Chunping advised, the sword support group was previously linked to the military department and the operations department. If Song Shutang rearranges its work, it is likely that they will choose between the 2. Let them compete, and we will not participate. According to the director, which one will be arranged above? The military department and the operations department are probably starting to compete, and it's hard to say who will spend it on. Unfortunately, Song Shutong may not be able to reap the credit this time, Chao Yaning lamented for Song Shutong. Capturing Japanese spies within the Military Statistics Bureau can be considered a great achievement, not to mention subsequent interrogations. But this credit doesn't seem to be worth it to Song Shutong. It's good to be able to get out of trouble from the interrogation department. As for the credit, not to mention this time, it's probably destined for no good in the short term in the future. The director said that the review has not ended yet. Our review has naturally come to an end, but the matter with the sword embracing group is still a mystery. The covert observation and investigation of Song Shutong will inevitably continue. Capturing Japanese spies can prove innocence. But what if the Japanese designed it to sacrifice a Japanese spy and solidify your identity? Even the intelligence department's discovery of Japanese spy clues may be under calculation, but it is still unknown. Although it may be quite demanding to meet these conditions, intelligence work is not just about maintaining suspicion. After all, it was Song Shutong's method of finding Japanese spies, which was too shocking and inevitably led some people to speculate whether he had known before. Alright, let's not talk about his problem. You cooperate with the intelligence department to interrogate the Japanese spy, while Yan Qinghui and Nie Hong also intensify their scrutiny. The telecommunications and general affairs departments are not stopping. I understand. Tomorrow morning, let Song Shutong leave. Wan Chunping didn't want the military department and the operations department to run to the judicial department every day, so he decided to release the people first. If they were willing to fight, they would fight on their own. Chao Yaning understood Wan Chunping's meaning and nodded in response, yes. Coming out of Wan Chunping's office, Chao Yaning began preparing for an overnight interrogation, and Shen Lushui had already returned. Shen Lushui sent someone to explain the situation to the director of the military department, while he himself went directly to the interrogation department. If he had pried open the mouth of the Japanese spy earlier, the value of the intelligence would have increased. The interrogation department is destined to be sleepless tonight, but Song Shutong has already gone to bed early and he understands that they will not have time to talk to him tonight. In my sleep, I glimpsed every moment with the members of the sword embracing group, eating and living together, teaching and learning, fighting side by side, advancing and retreating together. In an instant, gunshots became loud, explosions and thunder erupted, and the leader of the Heavenly Drum team desperately covered for him, tearing open a path of blood for him. A pair of hands pushed him away, and behind him was a barrage of bullets and swords. Suddenly opening his eyes, Song Shutong breathed a little, and the same dream accompanied him for a long time. The last words of the team leader and others were still in his ears, urging him to live on. Adjust your breathing and get out of bed. When you hear movement outside, the interrogation officer knocks on the door and enters. You can leave today, the clerk said. Chao Yaning did not appear, and Song Shutong knew that the interrogation might still be ongoing. As for the outcome of the interrogation, he did not ask, which was not what he should have asked, and there would be no answer. After some slightly cumbersome procedures, I followed the clerk and left the interrogation department, leaving the Military Statistics Bureau all the way. I'll take you to the temporary residence, the clerk said. Excuse me. No trouble, it's my job. Besides, the roads in the mountain city are well connected and there are many steps up and down. I really can't feel them clearly when I first arrived, the clerk said with a smile, as if recalling what he looked like when he first arrived in the mountain city. A gentle breeze mixed with thin mist can always vaguely smell a burnt smell in the nasal cavity. Although the fire caused by the bombing had already been extinguished, the devastation before us made the sense of smell deceive. Broken walls and ruins can be seen everywhere. Although I have seen it yesterday, it is still shocking to see it again. The two of them arrived at a shantytown, and the clerk opened a door and handed the key to Song Shutong, saying, "You will be staying here for the next 2 days. It's a bit shabby, please forgive me." At the same time, try not to go out as much as possible, so that the bureau headquarters can summon you at any time. It is indeed rudimentary. But it was not intentional by the Military Statistics Bureau, it was actually a helpless move. The war led to a large influx of people into the mountain city, coupled with frequent bombing by Japanese enemy planes, causing extensive damage to houses, resulting in the current situation of more people and fewer houses. The inevitable occurrence of housing panic has been addressed by the government, with dedicated personnel responsible. Many anti-Japanese war houses, built with bamboo strips have emerged in the mountain city. At this time, the anti-Japanese war room was arranged for Song Shutong. The bombing of the Military Statistics Bureau by enemy planes was also inevitable. There were also many people and few rooms within the bureau, and the internal personnel could not be fully accommodated. Naturally, outsiders like Song Shutong could not obtain housing and were arranged in the anti-Japanese war room. The clerk said it was a temporary residence just to sound nice, but Song Shutong understood in his heart that if nothing unexpected happened, he might have to stay here for a long time. Taking the key and thanking the clerk, the interrogation clerk left. His task today is to bring Song Shutong to his residence. The room has simple furnishings, with one bed, one table, and one chair. He said he was not allowed to go out casually, so that the Military Statistics Bureau could summon him at any time. However, sitting in the room was also boring. He planned to go out for a walk and also solve the problem of eating. Today, the interrogation department did not manage food. The densely populated shantytowns where the anti-Japanese war houses were located created lively scenes, while everyone was warm and hospitable, and people from all over the country got along very well. There are more street stalls, one wash basin, one thermos, and one stool, which is a hair salon. A stove, a few chairs, and a small bowl make a tea stand. The shop located indoors has several tables, a small stove, and even a hot pot. As Song Shutong walked and looked, he arrived at a stall and saw a large number of diners. He also went in to offer sacrifices to the Five Organs Temple. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Uncle Lee. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Uncle Lee. The facilities of the small shop on the street are simple and there is not much welcoming or sending. Song Shutong sat down on his own, while the owner was still busy by the fireplace. There were no service personnel to introduce him. A few dish names were written on a wooden board with charred charcoal, making it a menu. The name of one of the dishes made him curious. Bomb soup. What kind of soup is this bomb soup? Song Shutong asked. It's pickled vegetables and egg soup. Someone beside me helped answer questions. How did you come up with such a name? The little devil's bombs explode wildly every day, just like a scene. The humor of the people in the mountain city was inadvertently reflecting that although they were under the fire of war, they were not afraid of the Japanese army, and their plan to use bombing to destroy everyone's will to resist the war fell into the void. So I ordered a bowl of bomb soup and a bowl of noodles. During the meal, Song Shutong observed around and did not find anything unusual, indicating that there was no tracking or surveillance. After finishing his meal and checking out, he left and entered the interrogation department. All his belongings were confiscated. Fortunately, yesterday's spy boss Lee still had the money with him, so there was no situation where a single penny could defeat the hero. Taking a walk to digest the food, Song Shutong slowly strolled away from the shantytown, heading all the way to Zhongyi Road, passing through Sidri Road to Zhongyi Road back street. His footsteps did not stop but were also slow and steady, and he arrived at Shengxiandong back street. I took a slight detour to further confirm if anyone was following me. After ensuring safety, Song Shutong stopped at the upper stone slope. Looking not far away, I saw a shoe repairman sitting on a pony, with the necessary tools in front of him. He was tapping a pair of leather shoes with a small hammer in his hand. Looking at his face, he is only in his 40s, but his hair is already half black and half white, presenting a specific gray color. The stubble around the mouth and chin is not too long. It was just repaired about 2 or 3 days ago, and the beard is still black, forming a sharp contrast with the hair. Song Shutang stepped closer and sat down on the small horse opposite the shoe repairman. At this moment, he could see that there was nothing under the craftsman's legs. Disabled. My legs are all gone from below my thighs. Customer repairing shoes. The craftsman helped the old glasses in his eye socket and asked in a friendly voice. Repairing shoes. Song Shutang took off his left shoe and handed it over, but the sole of the shoe did indeed peel off. The craftsman put down his work, took the shoes and flipped through them, saying, "I'll fix it for you first." Song Shutang looked at the craftsman's legs and a hint of pain flashed in his eyes. He asked softly, "The injury hasn't healed yet, why don't you rest more at home?" The craftsman was focused on his work, but he replied, "You don't want me to accompany you back to the bureau. I'm worried that you'll face the interrogation department's review and your heart won't be able to stay. Let Uncle Lee worry about it. Uncle Lee in front of me is also a member of the sword embracing group. The sword embracing group consists of 9 people. Yen Qinghui was responsible for the radio station work and did not participate in the operation on that day. Nie Hong was responsible for driving the vehicle and waited at the evacuation site, without taking direct action. So there were 7 people who took action directly on that day. Leader of the Heavenly Drum team, Qin Ge from Fanwei, Ao Jie from Forgetting Home, Zhao Ge from Crazy Medicine, Chu Ge from Chuanju, as well as Li Shu from Lei Gong and Song Shutang from Eugene. In the interrogation of Ku Song Shutang, it was said that out of the 7 people, 6 died and he was the only one alive. However, in reality, Li Shu, who was seriously injured on the back of Song Shutang at the time, was evacuated together under the desperate cover of the team leader and others. The Japanese army's ambush was unexpected, so even if they withdrew at that time, he dared not take Uncle Lee to find Nie Hong. After all, it is unknown who betrayed the news, and even a slight mistake would lead him to fall into the trap. He evaded the agreed location and evacuated on his own, resulting in Nie Hong not seeing Uncle Lee. I am the oldest in the sword embracing group, and you are the youngest. They will give you and me the chance to live. So I can't let this matter be unclear. I must investigate the truth and give the team leader an explanation. Song Shutang's emotions were slightly elevated. Investigate the truth. That is not only what the Military Statistics Bureau needs to do, but also what Song Shutang needs to do. He needs a truth more than anyone else, he wants someone to pay the price for it, he wants revenge. Uncle Lee knew it was difficult to persuade. He was not unwilling to seek the truth, but worried that Song Shutang would be in danger, and even more worried about his impulsive actions. Originally, Uncle Lee planned to come back with Song Shutang. The two of them had the least suspicion of testifying to each other, but Song Shutang rejected this proposal. The situation is complex and unpredictable, and the mastermind behind the scenes is waiting for the opportunity to take action. Uncle Lee, in the current situation, how can he still cope with these? To ensure the safety of Uncle Lee, Song Shutang requested him to hide and publicly stated that he would sacrifice himself with the team leader and others. At first, the two of them had a heated argument, each holding their own opinion. The later Song Academy directly pressured Uncle Lee to agree to his arrangement as a rogue. So he appeared and returned to the Military Statistics Bureau for review, while Uncle Lee was repairing his shoes and waiting for the joint. Why did you come out so quickly when you went back alone, with the greatest suspicion? Li Shuyuan thought he would have to wait for a long time. After all, Song Shutang can be considered as directly participating in positive actions. With everyone sacrificing themselves, only you survived, and the suspicion is not the greatest. Faced with this issue, Song Shutang briefly explained the operation of capturing Japanese spies. You have made great progress. Uncle Lee and others taught well. Master leads the way in and cultivates oneself. I suddenly have to take on my own, and I'm not quite used to it, said Song Shutong with a look of recollection. He is the youngest member of the sword-embracing group, only 22 years old when he joined, and he is only 24 years old this year. In the past, with brothers and sisters and a team leader in front, he rarely had to face anything alone. Although he didn't grow up in a greenhouse, there were still people to protect him. These will no longer exist in the future. Don't push yourself too hard, Uncle Lee's eyes were filled with worry. I know. Yen Qinghui in Niehong, how is the interrogation department investigating? Uncle Lee mentioned the two. I'm not sure, but I think I got nothing. Do you suspect the two of them? Doubt. In fact, Song Shutong is very unwilling to suspect Yen Qinghui and Niehong because they are both members of the sword support group. On the same day of action, other people died in front of him, and Uncle Lee's legs were also disabled as a result, so there was no doubt in his heart. If there is no doubt, why did you evacuate on your own on that day instead of going to the agreed location to meet Niehong? The bloody facts taught Song Shutong to be rational rather than emotional. Uncle Lee also didn't want to doubt Yen Qinghui and Niehong, but it was pointless to say so much about the matter, only to seek the truth. Do you mean that the interrogation department will eventually release the two individuals? The Hunan and Guangdong factions are luring people behind the scenes, and there is no evidence in the interrogation department. Naturally, people need to be released, it's just a matter of time. Song Shutong understood in his heart that there is no evidence. No matter who did it, the interrogation department will find it difficult to find evidence. The final result is nothing more than putting people in it. Uncle Lee understood Song Shutong's idea. He intended to wait until Yen Qinghui and Niehong got out of trouble, and then he would investigate secretly. Doing so is naturally dangerous. In Uncle Lee's opinion, Yen Qinghui and Niehong are both more experienced than Song Shutong, and they have also taught him a lot. What is the chance of this student winning against the teacher? Do you think it's either the two of them defecting to the enemy or a factional dispute? Uncle Lee asked a very sensitive question. I'm not sure at the moment. Be careful in all things, don't disappoint people like Heavenly Drum and Mad Medicine, who sacrificed their lives to save you, and have high hopes. Uncle Lee, you too, take care of yourself. I can't die with this old bone. The leather shoes in his hand had already been repaired, and Uncle Lee handed them over and said, do you still fit well after trying them on? Song Shutong took the leather shoes and put them on his feet. He stepped on them hard on the ground and said, Master, you have good craftsmanship. While paying at the Song Book Hall, Uncle Lee took the opportunity to ask, what exactly did "forget home" say to you on that day, causing a big change in your face and agreeing to evacuate? It's not in your nature. What is my temperament? In that crisis situation, although everyone called you to leave, I know your temper. You would rather choose to live together than agree to evacuate alone. So what "forget home" said to you played a decisive role, and I am curious about what she would say to change your thoughts. Auntie, let me live well. Facing such an answer, Uncle Lee smiled silently but did not continue to ask. Song Shutong stood up and planned to leave, but as he turned around, he couldn't help but say, don't you blame me for carrying you out. No wonder. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Flower and Flower Intelligence Department. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Flower and Flower Intelligence Department. Not only Song Shutong is willing to live and die together, but Uncle Lee is also willing to do so. Tiangu is the leader of the sword support group, but Uncle Lee is more like the parent of the sword support group. It is more difficult for people to accept him to abandon his own children and evacuate than to take his life. So living. It's not just a simple life, the inner torment and pain are difficult to express. Moreover, Uncle Lee's legs are disabled, making it difficult for ordinary people to overcome the large gap between the front and back. The often inexplicable pain in his legs kept Uncle Lee from falling asleep for a long time in the late night. His comrade died in battle and he was unable to recover the truth, feeling guilty and tormented. Live. It cannot be said to be a blessing. On that day, Uncle Lee was knocked unconscious by the explosion. When Song Shut-ang evacuated, he carried him on his back. If it weren't for humans being in a coma, he knew that no matter what method he used, he couldn't take Uncle Lee away. Without seeing Song Shut-ang far away with his gaze, Uncle Lee immediately began to tap and beat with his shoes, as if repairing shoes was his top priority. Is it strange? He certainly wouldn't blame Song Shut-ang, let alone show his suffering in front of him. Uncle Lee is still using his own way to care for Song Shut-ang, even if such care seems insignificant for the danger that Song Shut-ang will face in the future. Leaving from the upper Slate Slope, take the Zhongyi Branch Road, cross Chunyangdong Street, pass through Guanyin Rock, and head towards the vicinity of Luojiawan. Song Shut-ang returned to the residence arranged by the Military Statistics Bureau and lay in bed to rest. Today's meeting with Uncle Lee made him feel a bit uneasy and gave him some peace of mind. He understood that his next task was to waiting for the work arrangements of the Military Statistics Bureau headquarters. At the same time, he was very clear in his heart that the Bureau headquarters would not immediately assign him field tasks. After all, the review had not been completely completed. Shen Lu, a sailor, was holding documents outside the office of the Director of Military Intelligence and shouted for a report. Come in. Director. Bao Yiwei looked at Shen Lushui with a tired expression on his face, knowing that he had been interrogated overnight and had not slept all night. Putting the documents on Bao Yiwei's desk, Shen Lushui reported, the Japanese spy didn't speak. Can't the interrogation department pry open the mouth of Japanese spies? This Japanese spy has a very strong willpower. He has used all kinds of torture tools and has fainted several times, but he just won't speak up. Upon hearing these words, Bao Yiwei couldn't help but admire them. Looking back at the Military Statistics Bureau, it's not that there are no such loyal individuals, but there are also countless defectors. They are currently fighting and often dealing with their old friends and colleagues. Knowing the root and the bottom of the battle has its ups and downs, far less effective than the early stages of the anti-Japanese war. Without uttering these words, Bao Yiwei looked at the interrogation materials and immediately put them down, saying, is it difficult to conduct a follow-up investigation? The other party was very careful, and the clues found at their residence were limited. Other than him, those who were arrested spoke up under torture but were not clear about anything and could not provide valuable intelligence. Continue to conduct in-depth investigations, investigate social relationships, and do not let any clues slip by. Let the interrogation department continue the interrogation and ask medical staff to be on standby outside the door at any time. Bao Yiwei will not easily let go of this Japanese spy, as he cannot exploit his value, and the significance of arrest will be much smaller. It's the director. After reporting the interrogation issue, Shen Lushui turned to say, Song Shut-ang has been released by the interrogation department. Originally, Shen Lushui came out of the interrogation room today and wanted to see Song Shut-ang. However, he learned that the person had already been released in the morning. Bao Yiwei was not surprised when he heard this. Wan Chunping is afraid of getting into some trouble. The judicial department is not afraid of trouble, but Wan Chunping is not willing to get involved in this unnecessary trouble at all. Director, should we compete with the action department or not with the Song Book Hall? Not only the action department, but also the party and government intelligence department, political department, wants to get involved. It's understandable for the political department to intervene horizontally in the action department. If the political department comes to join in the fun, it won't be possible to hit it with 8 sticks. Shen Lushui strongly disapproves of the political department's behavior. At that time, Heavenly Drum sent a telegram back, saying that they wanted Song Shut-ang to join the sword support team. Although the telegram clearly stated that it was a material that could be made, I just didn't want to refute Heavenly Drum's face and signed an exception to agree. But now it seems that I have taken my eyes off guard, and the growth rate is surprisingly fast. What the Military Statistics Bureau does not lack the most is talent. Shenlushui thought that talent is not a big deal. He has seen it many times, and being able to survive in struggles and battles is the key. So what do you think is the key to his survival this time? Bao Yiwei suddenly asked. Shenlushui was well aware of Bao Yiwei's personality and understood the purpose of his questioning, but he said, but he caught the Japanese spy. But this Japanese spy kept his mouth shut and did not disclose any further information. How could the Japanese sacrifice such a loyal Japanese spy to establish Song Shutang's identity? This is not very reasonable. It's indeed unreasonable, but it's not impossible. What does the director mean? Let Song Shutang participate in the follow-up investigation mission of this Japanese spy mission, so that he can further prove his innocence. Bao Yiwei struck two birds with one stone. Not only can Song Shutang be left in the military office, but his identity can also be further confirmed. After all, he still wanted to keep the Song Book Hall. Shenlushui couldn't help but smile and say, the director is openly building a plank road and secretly passing the time. Maintaining skepticism toward Song Shutang provides sufficient reasons for it to stay, further proving that the matter of the Qing dynasty is of great importance and that the action and political departments have lost their competitive advantage. Tomorrow, let Song Shutang report to the intelligence department without going through the personnel department. I will greet them. It's the director. People stay behind but cannot leave hidden dangers. You are responsible for conducting the final investigation, and use this task to thoroughly understand them. I understand. Talents can stay. Hidden dangers are not feasible. Now it seems that Song Shutang is innocent, but being cautious in intelligence work is an essential quality. Conducting the final investigation is not unnecessary, but a good habit. Yan Qinghui and Nie Hong, how are they being reviewed? Bao Yiwei was also concerned about the review of the sword support group. Chao Yanning shouldn't have gained anything here. Since they dare to come back, how could they easily show their horse's feet? Chao Tiemian is probably going to be exhausted this time. Does the director think the problem lies with the three of them? Of course, the three are Yan Qinghui, Nie Hong, and Song Shutang. It's too early to draw conclusions now. Bao Yiwei will not easily draw conclusions now. After all, this matter involves a lot of factional struggles, even involving Hunan, Guangdong, and Zhejiang factions. If the factional struggle led to this tragedy, the thunderous anger above can be imagined. Bao Yiwei even hoped that someone would defect to the enemy. Yan Qinghui from Hunan and Nie Hong from Guangdong returned unscathed, but unfortunately, the team leader, Tiangu, led a heroic sacrifice. Unfortunately, there were also two people from Zhejiang who sacrificed themselves, so there was no room for suspicion from others. There is a lot of discussion within the Bureau, and all parties dare not speculate recklessly now, just waiting for the Judicial Department to give an answer. The pressure on Wan Chunping can be imagined, and without evidence, he dare not speak recklessly. That's why Song Shutang said that both Yan Qinghui and Nie Hong are likely to pass the review. After all, the interrogation department dare not forcefully label it, the outcome of the examination is what it is, and without evidence, there is no evidence. The Hunan and Guangdong factions are in a hurry to recruit people, but they are also worried that the interrogation department will determine that there is a problem with Yan Qinghui or Nie Hong, and they will be passive. This matter may be difficult to understand for a while. Bao Yiwei asked Shenlushui to work, while he himself wrote a note asking Song Shutang to report to the intelligence department. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Participation in investigation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Participation in investigation. In the early morning air, there was a hint of coolness. Song Shutang held the bucket he had purchased yesterday and waited in line at the water station to fetch water. In the anti-Japanese war room, there is no access to tap water. In fact, it is not only the anti-Japanese war room, but also the specialized users in the mountain city are only about 2,000 households. There are more than 10 water stations available for everyone to purchase tap water. However, carrying water down the river is still one of the main ways for residents to fetch water, and carrying water is also a way of making a living. Water carriers bring water from the river into the city and sell it to urban residents in exchange for compensation. When you first arrived at Songshatang, you couldn't figure out the activity trajectory of the water picker. On the street, you saw a water picker carrying a pole with 2 buckets hanging in front and behind. If you want to come forward and make a purchase, you are told that someone has already made a reservation, and many water pickers and buyers have long-term cooperation. So he came to the water station to queue up and wait. There were familiar people in the queue, chatting about the current situation in groups of 3 or 2, and in a few words, one could hear a high level of anti-Japanese enthusiasm. Many people also agreed to donate during their leisure time to fight against Japan. Shanxing has launched many fundraising and donation activities, and the citizens are very enthusiastic about participating. They all want to contribute their efforts to the resistance against Japan. Yesterday, on his way back, Song Shatang also participated in a donation activity. He was informed by the staff that there would be a charity sale and donation event, which would be held in the square and park, so that he could attend when he had time. When he reached the queue, he only had a bucket, unlike everyone carrying 2 buckets of water on a pole. After filling up a bucket of water and paying, he picked it up and returned to his residence to start washing up. After washing up, he came out of his room and sat down at a street stall, asking for a bowl of handmade noodles. There were no cooking conditions in the anti-Japanese war room, and Song Shatang was too lazy to buy a set. Eating was mostly done on the street. Just as he was habitually observing the surroundings and eating red oil to make a fortune, a person who was several years younger than him hurriedly walked towards the stall. "Brother Song, when I knocked on the door and saw no one answering, I guessed you were eating here." The young man had a well-proportioned appearance, a warm smile on his face, and a hint of pride in his words. Before Song Shatang could answer, the young man followed closely and said, "My name is Long Hao, from the Intelligence Department Group 1. Brother Song can call me Little Dragon. Brother Song, hurry up and come with me to the Intelligence Department to report. The department head is still waiting." Long Hao talked a lot about himself when he met, but Song Shatang didn't even find a chance to interject. He gained a rough understanding of Long Hao's familiar personality. Intelligence Department. The decision was made quickly. Song Shatang originally thought that they would have to wait a few more days. "Brother Song, I was specifically tasked with picking you up today. I just wanted to hear from you about the arrest of Japanese spies." "I can't figure out how you did it," Long Hao asked earnestly, sitting next to Song Shatang, looking forward to the answer. The answer cannot be given by Song Shatang. After all, it is difficult to explain it clearly in 2 or 3 sentences. Quickly finishing the red oil in the bowl and drinking all the soup, he stood up and said to Long Hao, "Report first, so as not to keep the department chief waiting." Long Hao didn't hesitate to lead the way, but his mouth didn't rest much along the way. "I will introduce the customs and traditions of the mountain city later. I will introduce the delicious food and wine of the mountain city later." It seems like he likes to talk, but he doesn't reveal anything that shouldn't be said. Regarding military statistics, Long Hao didn't mention a word. Being able to enter the intelligence department naturally won't be without hesitation. The chat journey became brief, and soon the 2 of them entered the Military Statistics Bureau. Long Hao took him to meet Shenlushui. "Report." Long Hao shouted with a strong aura, displaying the youthful vigor unique to young people. "Come in. Chief, Song Shatang has already taken over. Let me in. Brother Song, please come in." Song Shatang has just entered Shenlushui's office, which is not very large in size. After all, the various departments have relocated to Chongqing, occupying a lot of buildings for office use, so it is not a time to pick and choose. There is still glass on the window that has not been removed, so it seems that the intelligence department is more concerned about privacy. Putting newspapers on it is a breeze from all sides, which is difficult for someone like Shen Lushui who does intelligence work to accept. Chief Shen. In the future, you will work in the intelligence department and not be grouped for now. The intelligence department has 3 groups under its jurisdiction, with Long Hao in one group. However, Shen Lushui does not plan to group Song Shutang at the moment. I was supposed to give you a good rest for 2 days, but due to the busy schedule of official business, it disturbed your rest, Shen Lushui continued. Please instruct the department head that I have taken enough rest. The investigation into the Japanese spy that was caught earlier was not very smooth, and you will also participate in the subsequent investigation. Shen Lushui did not make any detours. Participate in the investigation of Japanese espionage. Song Shutang understood in his heart that it was still a review of himself. Did the Japanese spy not speak up? Song Shutang felt that only this could be considered as not going smoothly. No. Shen Lushui was also quite helpless. The medical staff rescued him twice, but the other party persisted and did not speak, and the interrogation did not make progress. Upon hearing that the interrogation failed to pry open the other party's mouth, Song Shutang was indeed surprised and couldn't help but admire the loyalty of the spy this day. As for asking him to try the interrogation, Song Shutang is not so ignorant of heaven and earth. The expertise of the interrogation department lies in its rigorous procedures and frequent use of torture. Even professionals like Chao Yaning can't pry open it, so going to Song Shutang is not asking for trouble. Chao Yaning probably knows all the torture tools and criminal laws he has heard of but never heard of, and he doesn't need anyone else to teach him. This is the complete information, please take a look first. Shen Lushui handed over a copy of the materials. In fact, Song Shutang already has a good understanding of the whole matter. The cause was that the intelligence department discovered a suspicious person near a factory. After arrest and interrogation, it was found that this person was a bandit on the mountain outside the city. The purpose of entering the city was to find out the locations of various military factories, hospitals, schools, etc., and provide them to Boss Li. Many military factories were built along the river outside the city, and he had already figured them out. This time, he came for some factories inside the city, but who knew he had exposed his shortcomings? When the intelligence department hears that the person who collects this information behind the scenes is the big fish, and it is very likely to be a Japanese spy, so they naturally want to arrest them. The bandits who can be caught have no idea who the person behind them is. Every time they meet, they are blindfolded and taken back, unable to provide specific information. It was precisely because of this that Shen Lushui came up with a plan to find someone to replace him, which was quite difficult to execute and happened to fall on Song Shutang. The plan went smoothly and we found the location of Boss Li, but we were unable to fish big fish on the long line and had to implement the catch. Because the bandits caught earlier were not the first to send intelligence to Mr. Li, they had also provided it once before. Mount Huangshan Official Residence. Number 5 Xinsuan, Lianglu Road. Nanquan Villa. These addresses are all addresses of important people, and it is clear what the other party wants to do with this information. The addresses of factories, hospitals, schools, etc. are for targeted bombing. However, the intelligence department concluded that the Mount Huangshan official residence, Liangluka New Village and other addresses were for assassination. Assassination will naturally send assassins, and intelligence departments will decisively arrest people. The primary task is to obtain information from the other party about the assassins and capture or kill them all. At the same time, gather the intelligence behind it and follow the clues to catch it all. The other party did not speak during the interrogation, and immediately reached a deadlock. Without news of the assassin, we can only defend and cannot take the initiative to attack, which inevitably leads to long dreams at night. Secondly, he couldn't even figure out the other person's identity, let alone use him to arrest others. No wonder Shenlushui said it wasn't going smoothly. Thank you to the book friend 201706142148588171 for your support and reward from Xingxi Baishichu. Thank you to God Tomiao for your unforgettable love and commitment to monthly ticket support for 6 months. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Less important tasks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Less important tasks. After Song Shutong finished reading the materials, Shenlushui began to arrange work and said, "The bandits are in the charge of the elderly who have been in Sichuan for 34 years to suppress bandits. The interrogation department will think of a solution. The Social Investigation and Intelligence Department of Mr. Li is responsible for it. As for the prevention and search of assassins, the Intelligence and Action Departments will cooperate to carry out the work. Now it's not just investigating Japanese spies, the tasks we're responsible for are all-encompassing. What do I need to do?" Song Shutong asked. "You are responsible for capturing the 2 people who have another connection with Mr. Li. When searching the residence of Boss Li, we found not only the intelligence provided by Song Shutong, but also 2 other pieces of intelligence, which were roughly the same in content, providing accurate locations for important locations such as factories. It is inferred that there should be 3 people sending intelligence, not just bandits. And the intelligence has not yet been transmitted, indicating that Boss Li is a cautious person who intends to confirm the credibility of the 3 pieces of intelligence before transmitting it. By interrogating the people under Boss Li, it was also confirmed that there were indeed 2 people who sent intelligence, in the same way as what Song Shutong had experienced. The driver has already confessed to the agreed location, time, and method of confirming identity. Now, all they need to do is go and arrest the person based on this information. It can be said that this task is currently the simplest and most straightforward among the tasks to be responsible for. The difficulty is very small. So the natural value is not significant either. The people who provided intelligence to Boss Li on these 3 lines were only using money to do things and had no knowledge of valuable information. This task can be assigned to anyone, but Shenlushui happened to hand it over to Song Shutong. Further examine one's identity. Obviously, the weight of this task is not enough. After all, even Japanese spies can sacrifice themselves, and these peripheral figures are obviously insignificant. Or is it that you are unsure of your identity and do not want him to participate deeply in the mission investigation? Unable to grasp Shenlushui's plan for a moment, Song Shutong was ordered to say, "Yes, Chief. Arrange for Long Hao to be responsible with you. It's the department head." Long Hao beside him looked very excited, as if he could carry out tasks with Song Shutong. He was very happy. During the operation, Song Shutong was responsible for commanding. Command. Just command Long Hao alone. This arrangement is not abrupt. Song Shutong is a newcomer at a young age, but Long Hao is still younger than him and doesn't seem to have much work experience. It is obvious that he is not suitable to direct Song Shutong. Long Hao was very satisfied with this arrangement anyway and smiled at Song Shutong. After receiving the task, Song Shutong and Long Hao left Shenlushui's office together. Shenlushui is currently very busy and has many questions waiting for him to investigate and handle. Leaving the intelligence department, Long Hao led the 2 of them to the General Affairs Office to find the person in charge of the transportation department and needed them to provide a car. The capture task that the 2 of them will be responsible for next is well completed with a car. With the approval from the intelligence department, the transportation department has a high efficiency in handling affairs here. On the spot, they obtained the key, a Ford Bridge car. And the guns from Song Shutong, as well as additional magazines and bullets, have all been collected. However, there was an interlude in between when a person from the General Affairs Department's car brigade happened to come over and saw Song Shutong as if he had something to say, but in the end, he didn't come forward, possibly due to the reason of Long Hao beside him. Song Shutong speculated that he wanted to inquire about Nye Hong's news, but Nye Hong was still in the interrogation department and had not seen him again since he returned, nor did he know any further information. Before leaving the General Affairs office to pick up the car, Long Hao volunteered and said, "I'll be responsible for driving. I'm familiar with the roads in the mountain city." Without rejecting Long Hao's kindness, Song Shutong became the co-pilot. As the car started and left, Long Hao said while driving, according to the information they provided, the next pick-up and meeting will be on February 9th and 12th. We have one more day to rest tomorrow. Go to Xiaxizhi and Huixiankyo tomorrow to have a look in advance, Song Shutong said directly. Since he is in command, he won't be polite here. Upon hearing this, Long Hao immediately said, "Okay." Xiaxizhi and Huixiankyo are the agreed meeting places. Although Long Hao knows them both, since Song Shutong wants to see in advance for safety, he naturally won't argue. "I'll treat you to lunch today. Let's go to the Central Hotel for a meal, which can be considered as a way to welcome you, Brother Song." Long Hao's enthusiasm is not easy to refuse. After all, he turned the steering wheel and was already heading towards the Central Hotel. The Central Hotel is not far from them, just at the Huangjiaya Pass on Zhongyi Road. Song Shutong passed by the entrance once yesterday. When they arrived at the place, the two of them parked and got off the car. Without giving Song Shutong a chance to refuse, Long Hao took the lead and said, "Brother Song, don't refuse. I still have many questions today that I want to ask Brother Song, and I hope you don't hesitate to give me your advice. You come from a professional college and have a bright future. Do you still need to ask me for advice? Ask if you don't understand, only then can you make progress." Song Shutong's words were suggestive, and seeing that Long Hao did not refute them, it seemed that his guess was good. Perhaps he was also a disciple of the emperor. The two walked towards the Central Hotel and saw a promotional poster posted at the entrance, which read, "The environment is beautiful, the location is moderate, the house is spacious, and the waiters are attentive. However, this location is actually a bit far from the people of Liashanqing, as the old city area is located between Kaoshiman Pier and Bayou Printing Office. Fortunately, many people have flooded into the mountain city now, and many government agencies have moved in. Even in places such as Chichi Road and Zhongyu Branch Road, many people have moved in. The business of this central hotel is quite good. Even if it's not yet time to order, there are still several tables of business inside." The two sat down in the corner and when ordering, Song Shutong let Long Hao watch as he was familiar with it. The dishes will be served soon, and Long Hao beckons to move his chopsticks. Long Hao's enthusiasm is not annoying, because he is very well behaved. Regarding the matter of the sword support group, he is not curious but never mentions it. During the meal, Long Hao turned the topic to work and asked, "Brother Song, you said this boss Li has such a tough mouth. Why do the people under his command lack willpower and speak up early? Have you ever participated in interrogation work with the interrogation department?" Song Shutong retorted. "I've heard of it, but I haven't had any contact yet. In the interrogation department, 9 out of 10 people will speak up, whether it's us or Japanese. Criminal equipment. People who haven't experienced it will never understand. Despair. I can't beg for death. Life is better than death. There are very few people who can withstand the punishment, not to mention the enemy. My teacher taught me a sentence before, it's easy to end one's life in person, but to get through a difficult sentence. At first, I didn't quite understand, after all, suicide also requires great courage. Later, I heard some senior brothers say that even suicide is a luxury when subjected to torture. That's right, the people under Mr. Li are not Japanese. It's reasonable for them to speak up early. As for whether Mr. Li can hold on, it's unexpected. There's a 1 in 10 chance that we will encounter him, which can be considered bad luck. So is this enough to demonstrate that the identity of Boss Li is very important, and he is an extremely experienced spy worker? Long Hao continued to ask, with a learning attitude. Song Shutong said, there is no necessary connection between these two, but it cannot be denied that Boss Li has rich work experience. Belief is firm, willpower is strong, and there is not much correlation with the importance of identity and work experience. Long Hao agreed with Song Shutong's statement in his heart, as during his time at school, a teaching teacher had early experience in fighting against the Red Party. He learned that some students had been arrested and had only been working for a few months. However, he also kept secrets when facing torture equipment, indicating that it was indeed difficult to link it with work experience. Since the people below will speak up, it would be better if we could directly capture them and have them take us to find Mr. Li. Long Hao proposed a possibility for action. Song Shutong smiled and asked, are you questioning your department head? No, just chatting. Besides, it's our department head. Long Hao quickly waved his hand, but he didn't question Shen Lushui's plan. It can be seen that Long Hao is good at thinking and has some of his own ideas. They speak in front of the tools of torture, not casually. If they cannot speak on the spot when arresting someone, but instead bring them back to the bureau for interrogation, the time has already been exposed. Song Shutong explained slightly. Boss Li did not see anyone return within the agreed time, and his vigilance will inevitably prompt him to transfer. Even if the arrested person asks to provide an address, the person waiting will still go to the building alone. The atmosphere of this meal was good, but it was not a social treat. On the contrary, there was a hint of academic discussion. Long Hao and Song Shutong talked about many ideas related to this task. Thank you very much for your guidance today, Brother Song. I don't dare to give advice. Let's discuss and earn you a meal. All tuition fees should be paid, Long Hao joked. The communication between the two young people was originally easier, and coupled with Long Hao's naturally familiar personality, getting along naturally wasn't a hassle. There is nothing unsatisfactory about the arrangement of Shen Lushui's candidates. As for whether Shen Lushui's arrangement has any other profound implications, currently Song Shutong does not care because it is just a review. He will gradually prove his innocence, and he believes that Shen Lushui will continue to provide him with this opportunity. Thank you for the reward support of the 155 howitzer. Thank you for the monthly ticket support of 155 howitzers and Tianji Gimo. End of this chapter.